What is going on? My name is Daniel and welcome back to the channel. On this channel we go over everything mirrorless Canon cameras. I have the EOS R right here, which is our $3,000 camera, and I have our GE X50 image stabilization 16 megapixel camera right here. And this is our $30. So does it really matter what type of equipment you use to get good photos? Or is it all about how you use it? We're gonna go over everything that I experienced during this excruciating lead up to right now where I shoot the intro, me taking the photos, the stuff that happened, and why. Well, we'll get into it coming up. So what are the differences between these two cameras? Obviously, there's a huge price tag difference, and one isn't even a DSLR, and one isn't a DSLR either. I never thought of that. Well, we have a consumer, what you'd get for your kid camera, a point and shoot, and a mirrorless camera, which is even a step further than a DSLR. I kind of wish I was shooting this video on DSLR versus mirrorless, but it's not. I think you could replace it with a different lens if you unscrewed it and put a new one in there, but I don't think they sell anything for it. The camera has 16 megapixels, but it really doesn't even look like it. It actually has an f3 capabilities, but we'll take a look at it and it's not actually looking like an f3 at all. Other things is it has this little button on the front that allows you to move your zoom forward and back, and then it has a digital zoom. Those are the basic things, and it has a flash. Oh my goodness, flash. Boop! Love those juicy sounds. Okay, takes 4 AA batteries, and you can put it on a tripod. Does it really matter at all that it's a totally different tool? Can you still get good pictures out of this little thing right here for just $30? And the big differences that are right off the bat is size. Oh my goodness. So this thing is just like, it's lighter than a baseball and probably about the same as the battery that goes into this EOS R. The overall user experience holding it's a little bit too small for your hands, so that's weird and wacky. This one has a perfect grip, heavy lens. Coming in, zooming, it has several settings that you can go through. It has shutter priority, aperture priority, all sorts of things like that, and portrait modes that you can do that will give you a little bit different taste, and it doesn't have the color science that Canon does. This one obviously has a viewfinder that works. It's mirrorless. It is very sharp, has everything going on with it. I could give this to somebody in an hour. They would be shooting as if they were shooting on their phone with the ease of use. And the greatest thing about this is obviously it comes with a flip out flash right there. Oh my goodness. And you will never, ever, ever lose the lens cap. It is attached to it. Don't you just hate losing your lens caps? Oh my goodness, I lose this lens cap like never. Overall, the experience is obviously nowhere near what it is like to use this Canon camera. The full frame experience with a professional camera is so much different. It holds in your hand better. This has a fully articulating screen. It has a viewfinder. I couldn't get the viewfinder on this to work at all. And everything about it can shoot log, everything. It can shoot raw photos as well. And the overall experience is so much better. It took me 2 minutes to shoot all the photos that you're going to see with this EOS R, and it took me 30 minutes to shoot these photos with this one. And I will admit, I haven't used it since I pretty much got it when I was like 14. So let's get into the pictures, and there's only one set. I'm going to show it to you first so that you can see if you can tell the difference between these two photos right off the bat. All right, so coming up here, we have this photo, photo 1, and this photo, photo 2. And let me know which one you think came with which. Photo 1 or photo 2? Now, the biggest differences, so photo 1 is from our little GE camera here, and photo 2 is from our mirrorless camera. Obviously, there's a huge difference between these two. And even the framing when I took the picture had to be a little bit different because this thing had so much trouble actually finding the focus and being able to take the picture, because apparently taking anything closer than 3 feet away is out of this thing's ability. So looking at the first one, you can see very, very easily the color science isn't quite there. It's actually not too bad, and it almost has no background blur, which is really unfortunate because I was shooting at f3, I believe, or f4, and overall, it's a solid photo. It pretty much looks like what you took out of your phone if you were to do that. And then coming over here, this one, it was much more cropped in, or on the original photo, it has that nice background blur to the rest of it, and everything's sharp. The focus point for both of these was the coffee cup, and you can hardly even tell that those two things are people in the background because there's that much blur. Yeah, and this one's just crisp, so crisp, it has a little bit of blue already without me even editing it, whereas this one is pretty much just straight white. So most of the photos that I took coming off of this, that took me about 5, 6, 7 minutes to work with this one, looked like this, where they're just blurry, and for some reason it just would not focus properly at the framing I wanted. Up next is number 1 and number 2 right here. Number 1 and number 2. So which one do you think was the Canon? Which one do you think was the GE? So the first one was the GE, and the second one was the Canon. These two look very, very similar, and this really shows you the difference in color science. The first one has a very, very blue hint and tint, and if you look over here in the shadows, it has a much less gradual shadow, like it goes from the gray, darker gray into black very, very quickly, where there's only like 2 or 3 different transition colors. Whereas in here, when you see the Canon camera, it has a very, very gradual, where it's probably used 4, 5, 8 times the amount of different gray tones to get to that shadow. Next up is number 1 and photo number 2. So this one, number 1 happens to be the Canon right off the bat. And this one right here, the framing is once again a little bit different because of the difficulty to get these to actually focus. I shot both of them on a tripod. Yeah, so number 1 and number 2. And what here I'm going to show you is the ability to retain details in the highlights. And this is right here where number 1 is the Canon zoomed in, so when you drop down the exposure, you can see the details inside that candle where it's still not all the way burnt, and there's a difference between the melted wax, the regular wax, and then more of the details on the little Buddha. However, this is when you drop down the colors on the GE camera, it is still entirely all the way blown out. So this articulates the highlights and obviously, I mean, I'm shooting in RAW for the Canon camera, but still, I didn't do anything crazy with either of these. I just dropped the highlights down, or I just dropped the exposure down. Now this one actually looks a lot better now that I look at it out of camera. I'm not even gonna pretend that you can't tell the difference. This is obviously the Canon, and this one right here is what happened from me sitting in the exact same position trying to get it to focus on the flowers with the GE. It is just night and day, and obviously it's going to be grainy. There's not very many colors. It's not retaining anything, whereas the Canon camera has so much more dynamic range to capture all the colors in much more diverse lighting situations. At the end of the day, all of your favorite Instagrammers are not running around shooting with their phones, shooting with this. They're using nicer cameras. especially unless they're like a travel, then they might be using GoPros and just their phone every once in a while, but they all probably have invested in some type of nice glass and a nice camera. So it really does matter. So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more comparisons up against the mirrorless cameras that I own, just throw them down in the comment section. I'm interested to see what you guys are shooting on and what equipment you enjoy using down there. On this channel, we go over everything mirrorless Canon cameras. My name is Daniel, and as always, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you in the next one. Subscribe.